météorologique d'Environnement Canada. For service in English, 1. Pour le service en français, faites le 2. Welcome to Environment Service. Bienvenue au service météorologique d'Environnement Canada. For service in English, pour le service en français.
Okay, well, so much for that.
Down with your heart, nigga. Sit your little bitch ass down, nigga. Please, this street can't spell bro without the AR. Vote me for mayor. Taking helicopters down with a little laser. Hand in Canada, I'm holding bigger than fucking mega. Yaga, the liquor, but the shots will make you stagger. For my little brother, it's like he loves my partners. Real bad boy, from baby, y'all boxes.
That's a fucking.
With this empire, it's nothing like Russia. These are enemy lines, nobody can cross it. I'm a step for rappers and in the battle with 4 clips, triple tits. 4 clips like a bitch's wig stiction. Murder gang sick shit. Got me reading the words as my victim lip syncs. Hit your sick murders. Niggas know I'm running through the streets of beef like the hamburger with the burner. No food serving. Yeah, still M3G reppin'. Man, sitting in the vehicle, plotting on people. Taking your prized possession like a reaper. Kneeling with the hammer. Call it Tim Tebow. Holding on the hammer. Call it Home Depot. Everything I'm doing is illegal. Everything I'm doing is illegal. Kneeling with the hammer. Call it Tim Tebow. Holding on the hammer. Call it Home Depot. I'm at the bar ordering a Heineken. Waiting for the screen to fall back. I was timing it. Fronting them a double set of check me run 9 and 10. MGK on 1 Nigga, we some wild men. Brought together life again. Rifles like the Irishman. Used to call me Ben Trey, but Charlie was a rider man. Nigga try to end me for the money, call a fireman and put my fucking flame up. Go ahead and try it then. By all means, do you. I'm creeping through the field shop with Zulu. Cruising in the Subaru. Murder gang, crow punch dogs and give them bobos. You lose. Tell you what, kind of like two shoes. Listen, Junior is easy to hire shooters to whack you. Right now, I'd rather smack you. Don't even attempt, I won't tap you. Really, I don't have to. Slap the kid so hard to put a wonder, call him Matthew. Subliminal. Murder gang squad in effect. I set it up to win no blocks. You block to follow my dialect. My number, you ain't die yet. That judge ain't fired. By the end of this track, a motherfucker buying it. That bitch holds gauges and a couple 45s in it. Catch a couple cases, but I'll beat him if I'm hiding it. In the L spot, nigga, known for the kill shot. Cause I'm the nigga that shot Jack and Jill out the hilltop. Too. Lil Red Rider Hood was Rider Hood. The song blew it up now. She ain't riding through the hood. And Woody Woodpecker was a fag while Batman got chest and panties off his pants. Spidey was a swinger. Wolverine is a nigga that's obvious, so they ain't got a mission, that's a splinter. More like Master Shredder in my mask, my temporal blast for cheddar. Trying to make out is better. Yeah, I'm sitting in the vehicle, plotting on people. Taking your prized possession like a reaper. Kneeling with the hammer, call it Tim Tebow. Holding on the hammer, call it Home Depot. Everything I'm doing is illegal. Everything I'm doing is illegal. Kneeling with the hammer, call it Tim Tebow. Holding on the hammer, call it Home Depot.
Damn it, I want to know the fucking weather. In French too, right?
Welcome to Environment Canada's Weather Service. Pour la ville de Toronto, faites le 1.
There we go.
Pour la prévision publique pour les 7 prochains jours, faites le 1. Prévision émise par Environnement Canada à 15h30 le dimanche 10 mai pour ce soir, lundi et la nuit suivante. Ville de Toronto, avis de gel en vigueur. Pour ce soir et cette nuit, plutôt nuageux, 60% de probabilité d'averse de pluie tôt ce soir. Pluie intermittente débutant ce soir, puis se changeant en neige ou pluie intermittente après minuit. Vent du sud-ouest de 20 km à l'heure devenant du nord à 20 tard ce soir. minimum +1 avec gel par endroit. Pour lundi, neige ou pluie intermittente, cessant le matin. Plutôt nuageux par la suite. Accumulation de neige de 2 cm par endroit. Vent du nord de 20 km/h avec rafale à 40, maximum 7. L'indice ultraviolet de 7 ou élevé. Lundi soir, dégagement en soirée. Vent du nord-ouest de 20 km/h avec rafale à 40, devenant faible en soirée. Minimum -4 avec gel. Refroidissement éolien -9 au cours de la nuit. Prévision à long terme pour mardi ensoleillé. Maximum 9 mardi soir. Dégagé. Minimum -1. Pour mercredi ensoleillé. Maximum 14 mercredi soir. Dégagé. Minimum +4. Pour jeudi, nuageux avec 40% de probabilité d'averse. Maximum 13 jeudi soir. Pluie intermittente. Minimum 12. Pour vendredi, pluie intermittente. Maximum 20 vendredi soir. Passage nuageux. Minimum 10. Pour samedi, alternance de soleil et de nuages avec 30% de probabilité d'averse. Maximum 20. Normal pour la période. Minimum 8. Maximum 18. Pour la prévision publique pour les 7 prochains jours, faites le 1. Pour les observations, les conditions météorologiques à 1 heure, Toronto, aéroport international Pearson, généralement nuageux, la température +4, l'humidité relative 79%, le vent du nord à 12 km/h, la pression barométrique 101,2 kPa et à la baisse. Toronto, en ville, la température 5, l'humidité relative 68%, la pression barométrique 101,3 kPa et à la baisse. L'aéroport de Toronto Centre-Ville, généralement nuageux, la température 5, l'humidité relative 73%, le vent de l'est-nord-est à 11 km/h, la pression barométrique 101,2 kPa. Pour la prévision publique pour les 7 prochains jours, faites le 1. Pour les observations horaires, faites le 2. Pour l'information sur la cote Air Santé, faites le 3. Pour l'information sur nos services, faites le 8. Pour nous rejoindre, faites le 9. Pour retourner au menu
I want to know how you make it rain in the
faites
East End and
étoile.
sunny in the West End. Whenever the fuck you want. See all that, and I still answered in fucking English. The most cocky, ignorant, weirdest thing I've come out with still came out in English. They did that to me. They fucking forced me that way. I don't speak in slang in French. Hold on for this.
Them wicks and niggas is better than me. They told me them G-Way niggas is better than me. They told me them Reacher niggas is better than me. Got this devil in me. I don't see my enemies in miles away. Mother nature had a child today. Product of environments and alleyways. Like why these rappers wanna play me? There's something more dick than Sam cheese. I had to give it to him. Yeah, I had to give it to him. About 5 times my drama made the notes in my videos. Won't get 100,000 of views on the south side. I recognize the G-Way, Regent Park, and Southside Chain. That's where the demons walk. Rifle barrel by the meter long. Tears in your eyes when you see your mom. Let the boys not free, but open freedom come. Go against me, the Mac versus the BB gun. They didn't think we gon' throw some shots? Fuck niggas. Say vodka, bitch. This is a Mac 10 beef. Fuck's wrong with them? Or the next little youth with Down syndrome. They're like 5 foot nothing. Some boy, they better watch out. Get slapped down, survive a shot, then my nigga swinging back round, then you go, and then I'm at go ring, and it's fully automatic. Them niggas just so melodramatic, go ring, and it's fully automatic. Them niggas just so melodramatic. So emotional, niggas suspicious, trust that they mostly hoes. Making them kick rocks and open doors. I rock your roads. Try to take us from the poppy show. 50,000 views gon' gas them up like Escalades. The best of days. Give a fuck about response. Push that brand up past your tonsils. They tell me put them ducks away. Okay, cause he ain't even free yet. My soldiers with the posters. That's something they didn't free yet. Got your punchlines, I bust nines and nut shot by accident. I'm natural, no practicing. Baptized in blood, bring the Catholics in. This is light work, so why you panicking? Lyrical homicide for hoodlums. Fuck your niggas over, then your hood comes. Just remember where Scarborough your hood's from. These niggas looking like pom pom. Some boy, they better watch out. Get slapped down, survive a shot, then my niggas swinging back round, then you go, and then I'm at go ring, and it's fully automatic. Them niggas just so melodramatic, go ring, and it's fully automatic. Them niggas just so melodramatic. Some boy, they better watch out. Get slapped down, then you go, and then I'm at go ring, and then I'm at go ring. Them niggas is so melodramatic.
Was doing alright. My fucking face is starting to hurt. Man, that'll distract you. I'll smoke my way through it. Fuck it. Oh, I know what I did. Little the entire mix.
Won't make it to feast. I go hard till I'm in that box. A little baking soda mixed with cocaine. Now we cooking rocks. Can't see too many jocks. I know they surveillance me. Fucking let them watch. Satan's calling and we all on the clock. I have this dream. Every night it's the same. I'm on the beach and run up the nose. Tell me what this mean. You can call it greed. I call it get mine by any means. Yeah, the KID, aka the sad man, putting to sleep like rockin' bye-bye, baby. Will the sun come up tomorrow? I don't know, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, the boy that lost his way, walking like he lost the way. Where they say, yeah, the boy that lost his way, nothing good here, all he found was pain. Yeah, the boy that lost his way, walking like he lost the way. Where they say, yeah, the boy that lost his way, nothing good here, all he found was pain. Yeah, the boy.
I was raised up west side, money motivated mind. Feet standing corners, how would these be on the fucking grind? This all the time, every day, you know I gotta ride. Money be a girl, say goodbye, cause now the bitch is mine. It's just another day, another crime, we live in the devil's way. Like renegade, watch you keep their great, these are the end of days. Get on your knees and pray like you're about to meet the Lord today. Slowly starting to fade, lost, slipping into an unconscious state. You don't want that faith, living life in the hood is for the soldiers. On your folder, the paper I use for my kush, time to roll. So high hat court never showed up or what? So look get fucking get more bucks. With that lean forward nigga like me, I might rob your whole family tree. Yeah. With that lean forward nigga like me, I might rob your whole family tree.
Yeah, boy, done lost his way. Walking like a master, where to sing. Yeah, the boy, done lost his way. Nothing good here, all the time was playing. Yeah, the boy, done lost his way. Walking like a master, where to sing. Yeah, the boy, done lost his way. Nothing good here, all the time was playing. Yeah, the
Clean hard till my number call. Trust me, dog. You ain't prepared to do what I'm prepared to do. Work the car. The artillery I got, cut you in half like a chainsaw. Ready to tat, tat, tat. Man down. Stop. Listen. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Murder in the first degree. Homicide in my crib, harassing me. She just jammed the needle in her arm, now she can't speak. It's a cold world that we live in, take it from me. Yeah, in the end, everything I see and have seen is but a dream within a dream. Long days, cold nights, serving fiends.
Man, 2 minutes for my fucking face.
This the life that we live, this the life that we live, motherfucker. This the life that we live, this the life that we live, this the life that we live, motherfucker. This the life that we live, this the life that we live, this the life that we live, motherfucker. This the life that we live, this the life that we live, this the life that we live, motherfucker. This that new shit, that king life revolution. You don't wanna fuck with this, I got homie on standby, ready to let it rip. I suggest you close your lips, stop bumping your guards before you hurt someone you love. No remorse for my gun, no regrets for these clips. Cross me and I think about shit. Got an M16, cocked up the black market shit. Big guns, big clips, you don't want any part of this. I'm on that thing with retarded shit. We get shit, I can't fuck who started it. Try me, see how far you get. 4 goons in a stolen whip. Roll through, fuck your whole day up. Fucking clown, should've paid up. Not a great nigga putting in work. Covering your coffin in dirt. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, he got what he deserved. Just the life that we live, just the life that we live, just the life that we live, motherfucker. Just the life that we live, just the life that we live, just the life that we live, motherfucker. Just the life that we live, just the life that we live, just the life that we live, motherfucker. Just the life that we live, just the life that we live, just the life that we live, motherfucker.
It's fucking pure water coming out. Well, it's not pure, but coming out of my fucking lungs. It's not spit, it's coming out of my fucking lungs. It's been happening for fucking years. It's happening for fucking years.
There ain't no peace, always sees violence in the streets. Junkies in the alleyway, homie broke his by any means. Random robberies just to feed. Cuzzie, imagine what it's like to be me. It's just the nature of the beast. No warning, we just sink our teeth. We rip the competition apart. Once the gun goes off, it gets dark. He played until he passed on. A grown man crying like a hoe. What a sad song. All my soldiers put your flags on. We gon' bang to this song. I keep the strap like an ace in the hat. Yeah, I'm resident with only where I'm at. Got no time for rats. Tell broken nigga kiss her ass. We don't talk to police, got no respect for the bad. That's why I keep the gun in mass right next to the staff. You can't play me. It's the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. It's the nature of the beast. Say you can't play me. It's the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. Nature of the beast. Say you can't play me. The nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. Say the nature of the beast. Say you can't play me. The nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. Yeah, the nature of the beast.
I'm jumping on deck with my hand on my tech. Disrespect, but mama, get your face in your lap. You claiming you hardcore, but doing bass in the trap. I'm loading my gun up, where the fuck boys at? It's murder, homie. Don't talk shit, get your burner, homie. Chrome on me, and I'm down for the first degree. First 48, and my cousin on tape. Cutting the cop up with a 30 razor blade. These days are crazy, but we stay getting paid. Fuck with the boss, so and your homework is sprayed. I'm hanging with real killers and slanging with drug dealers. My city's a melting pot, controlled by the devil's block. Don't care if you're ready or not, you be dead on the block. We step ahead of the cop. G's up, hoes down, I'm joking around. In your hood, holding it down, killer king, holding the crown. You can't play me.
The University of Lethbridge researcher has studied 400 strains of the plant, and he claims some cannabis extracts are showing signs of limiting the number of virus receptors in a person's tissue. Dr. Kovalchuk says, imagine your body is a building, and the virus is thousands of people wanting to get inside. The more doors you remove, the less chance the virus has to enter.
If literally the virus
See me smoking my way through it.
stands around those doors and not able to enter for long, it will be eliminated.
Still trying to determine what the active ingredient is, Dr. Kovalchuk says the anti-inflammatory properties of high CBD strains have shown promise, meaning patients could take a high dose of the medication without feeling high.
What he's
But
calling
no
high
two cannabis
CBD,
varieties are the
high
same.
CBD.
In Edmonton, Darcy Routjan, City News.
Conspiracy theories are running rampant during the pandemic, even causing some to set fire to cell phone towers, believing the rollout of the 5G
They made it of metal.
could be aiding in the
Like,
spread
I'm
of
confused. I thought they were
COVID-19.
metal and concrete.
Experts
My
say
building's
people
got
often
them. I
turn
don't know
to
how to
these
set them on
fringe
fire.
beliefs when they feel out of control or helpless when it comes to the world around
Wooden high
them.
rise.
Shelley Lee joins us with more.
A 7-year study by the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection determined there's no negative health effects to 5G. Public health officials say that even if a small number of people buy into conspiracy theories, damage can be limited if the broader population has a herd immunity against
So all those 1 and
disinformation.
2G, 3G towers you burned down will be replaced by 4 and 5G. This is why we don't break shit we don't like.
Then the overall population is safe. That is to say, you don't need 100% of people behaving in a way to limit the spread.
Now, experts say it can be difficult to turn people away from conspiracy theories once they've bought into them, as many people who believe in conspiracy theories can be
is a
distrustful
catchphrase
of
coined
government.
by the
It
CIA.
may be more useful for friends and family to talk to those people
They're saying
in Ottawa. Shelley
except
Lee,
to take
City
it. We
News.
came up with that word. No, the
British Prime
CIA
Minister
came up
Boris
with that word.
Johnson has announced a
Conspiracy
modest
theory.
easing of the country's
That's the CIA
COVID-19
term.
lockdown, sketching the outlines of a roadmap of how further restrictions can be lifted in
DEA
the coming
came up with
months. And
420.
Thomas brings us the latest.
Thanks to you, we protected our NHS and saved many thousands of lives. And so
Oh,
I know, you know,
fuck.
that it would be madness now to throw away that achievement by allowing a second spike.
In a televised
Hey,
address to
Britain
the
has kids
nation,
for
Johnson
fucking
said
sickle cell,
people
you know
who
that?
can't work from home, such as those in construction or manufacturing jobs, should be actively encouraged to go to work this week. And a restriction limiting outdoor exercise to once a day will be lifted.
We want to encourage people to take more and even unlimited amounts of outdoor exercise.
According to Johns Hopkins tally,
I'll give more
Britain's
back
death
tens
toll
in
from
your streets than we
COVID-19
got
is
in
second
Toronto, you
only
dumb
to the United
motherfuckers.
States. I'm Ben
Oh, you
Thomas.
fucking ass.
You're listening to All News Radio.
Dumb motherfucker.
Cars for Kids hopes that you are all staying safe and healthy. We can and will get through this together. Many of you are
Yeah,
probably
you're not going
spending
through
time
shit,
at
I
home
am.
now.
I'm
Maybe
all
use the time to
spiked
spring
up
clean,
shit
like an
now.
old car taking up space in your garage. When you donate your car to Cars for Kids, it can live on by giving kids a chance to succeed. And it can all be arranged from the comfort of your home. No need to go out or do anything in person. The pickup can be contact-free. You'll receive a tax credit. Go to carsforkids.ca now to donate. Remember, that's cars with a K.
No one saw this coming. People and businesses are hurting financially through no fault of their own.
Oh,
Government
failure
and
to
lenders
plan
are
is no
doing a
fault
lot
of
to
your
provide
own, man.
relief, but at Farmer, we know that if you were
Bad
already
things
struggling with
use me on
debt,
purpose
it's even
to try to
harder
kill
now.
me like
When
it's
you're ready
robbed.
to beat your debt,
Oh,
a
say
Farmer
that,
licensed
you
insolvency
failure to
trustee
plan for
can
the
help
foreseeable
eliminate your
consequences
debt
of
so
your own
you
actions.
can get a
No
fresh
fault
start.
of your own,
Visit
man.
afarber.com to book a free phone or video consultation.
Live debt-free.
Grocery stores
News
have gone
is
to
always changing.
Now more than ever.
Listen 3, 4, 5 times a day.
This is 680 News.
Ask to play us on your smart speaker.
Oh, they're really happening at the grocery store now. Instead of being open from 8 to 10, they're open from 7 to 9.
The iPhone maker says temperature checks will be put in place, and it will limit the number of customers that will be allowed in a store at once. At the close on Friday, the stock was up by 2.1% to $310.13. And as we prepare for another week of trading, we had U.S. stock futures open lower. Dow futures fell by 0.3% or more than 40 points around the open, with S&P and NASDAQ futures also dropping at least 0.3%. However, all three futures benchmarks then changed direction and rose by at least 0.3%. And it comes as Wall Street is coming off its first weekly gain in 3, higher by at least 2.5% for the week. As for the TSX, it logged a weekly gain of more than 2.3%, and on Friday it logged a 5-day rally up by 132 points to 14,966. Now the gains on North American markets came despite a jobs Friday for the history books. StatsCan reported that the country lost almost 2 million jobs last month, while the unemployment rate soared to 13%. Stateside, 20.5 million jobs were lost in April, with the unemployment rate surging to 14.7%. As for this month, we have U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin claiming today that the unemployment rate may have already reached 25% as progress is being made to reopen the American economy amid the coronavirus pandemic. As well, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says the Trump administration is holding informal talks with lawmakers about the next coronavirus relief package. In electronic trade, oil fell more than 2% as it comes off a weekly gain of more than 25%. And on Friday, Western Canadian Select gained more than 20% to $20.98 a barrel. Canadian dollar on Friday rose by 23/100ths of a cent, closing at 71.80 cents US. And as for gold and electronic trade, it dropped by more than 0.3% as the precious metal comes off a weekly gain of roughly 0.8%. At the Business Center, I'm Carl Garnett.
I'm here with Bill Coy Brothers, and this spring we're talking about everything turning up green, like the grass on the ground.
At Coy Brothers, everything's turning up orange.
Orange? Are you talking Kubota, Bill?
Kubota zero-turn lawnmowers, tractors of all sizes, Kubota skid steers, and excavators. We got...
Green with envy, get an orange Kubota from Coy Brothers.
1919 Wilson Avenue, KOOYBROS.
Heroes, especially healthcare workers and first responders.
Stuck up in the bench to get checked up, wakes up, many twitches score with my plates, the base cut, start to break the walls when you stay blind. Keep it fucking black till you change up, danger, creeping in the average you ain't wrong. Touch strength, take it away from the gates, raised up, aim up at your brain, then we spice up, raised up, in the gutter lanes where we laced up, slant drums, take no other way, homie, get.
Something to learn here. Oh, fuck. Everybody else gets telemedicine. I can't get a fucking phone call. What's the point calling somebody 3 times in a row and then not calling them ever again? Fuck. These assholes know exactly what they're doing. They force me to come into the hospital. They know I'm going to pick up some other infection and fucking die. My immune system can't take anymore. And they fucking know it. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit.
Positive for the virus. More than 170 workers were sent home last week, either because they were sick or have come in contact with someone showing symptoms. The facility will officially close on Wednesday, so workers can continue to be tested. So far, 30 employees have tested negative, and the testing is expected to last until Friday. A Cargill spokesperson says the company has implemented safety measures, including plexiglass between workers, providing masks, visors, and safety goggles. This is the second outbreak at a Canadian Cargill facility, a Cargill beef packing plant in High River, Alberta, where more than 900 workers tested positive, reopened last Monday after a 2-week shutdown. I'm Madison Fitzpatrick.
As provinces begin the slow process of reopening their economies and people start returning to the workplace, questions surround the rights and responsibilities of employees and employers in the aftermath of COVID-19. Tim Chapman spoke with an employment lawyer in order to find some answers.
Adam Savalio, partner at Scarphone Hawkins LLP, says the biggest question is, do I have to return?
There is an obligation for an employee to return. There's no outright right to deny a return to work simply because
These people didn't stop working because they got sent home. They didn't refuse work. They got sent home.
Protected leaves of absence in Ontario.
Trying to get
Just
them
a
back to
general
work.
concern about COVID-19 doesn't give an employee the right not to return, but if they do say they feel unsafe, Savalio says it's a song and dance
You don't say you're scared of COVID.
and employer.
You start
And
coughing
yes,
and sneezing.
I can go back to work, but the employer has to be very careful about the circumstances that they're recalling the employee because they don't want to cause harm to their employee.
The next day when you're hungover, do a video call into work.
Protocols, having the proper policies in place.
At the end of the day, Savalio says these are unprecedented times, and the best workplaces are the ones that work together.
There's never been a fucking plague before,
The
ever.
issues
There's never
surrounding
been disease
COVID-19
before, or
and long-term
virus.
care homes have been deemed a national tragedy by Canada's top doctor in her update on Saturday. This comes as Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced provincial parks will begin reopening in that province on Monday. Stuart McGinn joins us with the latest.
Only 1 in 5 of Canada's COVID-19 cases are from a long-term care resident. They make up nearly 80% of the country's fatalities, and medical experts are calling on the federal government to step in to not only fix the situation, but also to build more modern facilities. The chair of the Canadian Association for Long-Term Care tells the CBC outdated buildings with narrow hallways, shared washrooms, and sometimes just a curtain used to separate a 4-bed room have only helped to spread this virus faster, a reality Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Teresa Tam, spoke to yesterday.
We will be living with COVID-19 for some time.
They are.
If we make it a priority to look after the most vulnerable in our society, we can change the outcome of this pandemic.
Those problems continue. Still, slow measures are being rolled out to open up certain provinces. In Ontario tomorrow, provincial parks are reopening with people encouraged to still maintain physical distancing, while retail stores with a street entrance will get back to business, provided they can offer curbside pickup. I'm Stuart McGinn.
British Columbia's top doctor says the province was hit early and tragically in the long-term care sector. Dr. Bonnie Henry says the Lynn Valley Care Center in North Vancouver was the first facility to report a COVID-19 infection on March 6th, and the outbreak was declared over on Thursday. She says authorities learned from that outbreak.
The measures that we took because of that early outbreak, really the team approach to a SWAT team approach, we call it, to going into every facility that has an outbreak, the very sensitive surveillance we've been doing, the testing we've been doing. Many of the more recent outbreaks have been a single or 2 cases.
Outbreaks have been declared in 34 facilities in BC since the start of the pandemic. The virus has since been cleared out in over half of those long-term care homes.
Golf is among the industries in British Columbia, anticipating a reopening of the broader economy in the hope of financial recovery. As Toby Kerr tells us, this comes as the last of the public courses in Vancouver is set to reopen this week.
While golf courses have mostly remained open in BC amid the shutdown, many are still struggling with a lack of revenue due to a loss of secondary income from things such as banquets, weddings, and corporate events. Erica Beck, BC Regional Director of the National Golf Course Owners Association, admits they're not sure what the broader impact on the industry will be.
I think we're probably going to be in this situation. Obviously, as I'm sure everybody has heard, for the next few weeks, if not through the summer, so we just have to be patient.
Beck says most golf courses are currently running at half their normal staffing levels. The golf industry in BC employs around 44,000 people a year. I'm Toby Kerr. If you live on the West Coast or were on social media over the weekend, you may have noticed crowded beaches in Vancouver. But as Tim James reports, the park board believes there's no need to hit the panic button despite concerns around physical distancing.
The photos you're seeing online may not tell the whole story.
I have to trust that people were in groups with people that were either part of their households or people that they're starting to have limited contact with.
That's Shauna Wilton, the Deputy General Manager of the Park Board.
For the most part, when you look at the groups of people, though, they are still physically distant.
Camille Dumont, the chair of the Park Board, agrees and says if people are breaking the rules, they're on it.
All of our park rangers are out and about giving people warning and so forth.
As for shutting down the beaches,
at this point, I don't think we're considering any closures at all.
A Vancouver police officer is among those expressing concerns online about the crowded beaches. I'm Tim James.
First Nations leaders who called on community members to return to the land to fight the COVID-19 pandemic are seeing a resurgence of traditional practices. The National Chief Norman Yaglaya says he's seeing many people in Yellowknife hunt and fish, sharing the bounty with community members. He says Indigenous people have different circumstances dealing with the pandemic, but are united together.
Indigenous people living in isolated communities, Indigenous people living in urban settings, rural settings. They are watching TV, trying to figure out this COVID-19.
He says a lot of people in the area know stories about how the 1928 flu epidemic decimated the region, and so they are taking precautions.
Countries around the world continue to fight coronavirus infections and try to flatten their curve. Joey Keeney is on the international watch.
In South Korea, the governor of the province that surrounds Seoul ordered the 2-week shutdowns of all nightclubs, bars, and other similar entertainment facilities in his province to guard against a possible new surge of coronavirus cases, as dozens of new infections linked to clubgoers have been reported in recent days. The Seoul metropolitan area is the most densely populated in the country, where about half of South Korea's 51 million people live. Earlier this morning, South Korea reported 34 additional virus cases over the past 24 hours, the first time the country's daily jump has marked above 30 in about a month. China reported 14 new cases today, its first double-digit rise in 10 days. Most of the infections were in the northeastern province of Jilin, which prompted authorities to raise the threat level in one of its counties to high risk, just days after downgrading all regions in the country to low risk. And Italy saw people return to the streets and enjoy spending time outside. But there is confusion for shopkeepers in the country who say guidelines for reopening are not clear. I'm Joey Keeney.
You're listening to All News Radio.
At Global Pet Foods, we're extremely proud to be locally owned and operated, especially during these challenging times.
You can't blame me. Say you can't blame me. Say you can't blame me.
Oh, sure, it would be nice to have some proper painkillers. That'd be way cheaper than all those beers.
The nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. Yeah, the nature of the beast.
You seen any gang members around?
No, sir. I saw a couple guys together at the library reading the same book. That's pretty communist, you know, it's pretty close to it.
haters in my business. That's the pictures of rejectors so diminishing. Yo, in the shell, shots have been no records. That's irrelevant. Don't mess with that's a record. Cause my flesh from metal skeleton. Those legends getting steady. 7 heads against your melons. But we militants repel the enemies and stay rebellious.
God don't care. This is how it is. Say you can pray, God ain't listening. God don't care, this is how it is. Say you can pray, God ain't listening. Stay there with her eyes open, having pipe dreams. Spent 4 days now, she still can't sleep. She has trouble sitting still, so she paces around the room, praying that I get this
serious. Why are you in a fucking business? You don't give a fuck about the products. I don't know what you did to your fucking stock, man. And one side is coming off every fucking time. You get fucked up to humidity or something. And you know what? I think we're about to prove these are fucking Rizlas with a different brand on them. Watch. Yeah. That is a Rizla with a fucking different label on it. They're both from the same fucking city. The address number is different. Some shit. Motherfucker. You can wet the Rizlas twice for some reason. And apparently these ones too. Motherfucker. I've been bitching about that for a fucking week, I think. What the fuck they did to fuck the papers up. This one's too perfect. I'm gonna destroy it now.
In her eyes when she stares at an empty spoon. She got a baby in her womb. And tries to father, so she left the needle to solve the problems. Yeah, so baby, you all grown up. Yeah, she all grown up. And she hate the world. I tell her life ain't fair. God don't care. This is how it is. It's a cold world we live in. Ain't no exceptions. The church like a good one, but God ain't listening. Hooker, if you hungry, take your ass to the soup kitchen. I ain't cuffing you nothing. Yeah, life ain't fair. God don't care. This is how it is. Say you can pray. God ain't listening. Say life ain't fair. God don't care. This is how it is. Say you can pray, but God ain't listening.
Eyes are closed, just lost our minds, trying to find a song.
There has to be viral activity instead of it's all be fucking happening at once now. Wow, that was fine. For hours that was fine.
Look closely, you can see the truth in my eyes. Back in junior high, already had gang ties. Fuck school in the back lanes, pockets full of something to hide. Machete blade concealed, pressed against my thigh. 9 years old, through my mama, I ain't scared to die. Black flag on my face, throwing up gang signs. Can't forget these cops kill my uncle Lance. And they wonder why my auntie said my cousin never had a chance. I just think over the scars, stick my arms through the bars, and reach for God. I roll my week with pages of rip from the Bible. I'm a sinner, all I know is survival. Keep 6 bucks for 5-0. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack better give me your shit before I light him up like a candlestick. Got some killers on my team, they ain't even 18. Day and night, rolling chickens, serving beans. Like I don't give a fuck. One time wanna lock me up. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Live life like I don't give a fuck. One time wanna lock me up. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Go hard till I'm dead and go. I've been living life like this since a little kid. Could've made a movie off all the shit I did. Count so much money, turn your fingers black. Step so good, I'm making extra weight back. Puffing on the weed, sipping on the Alizé, sleeping in the limousine. Yeah, it's just another day. Mama, don't pray for me, cause I'ma be okay. I live to die by the plane. Only feel alive when I'm staring death in the face. I'm holding a loaded 9, alone in the dark. Just me and my thoughts, contemplating homicide. Trust when the sun goes down, we ride. Respect to my dog, looking on the front line. No choice, either his life or mine. I ain't dying today. Rather pull the trigger back and watch the soul fly away. Watch the soul fly away. Bye-bye. Live life like I don't give a fuck. One time wanna lock me up. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Live life like I don't give a fuck. One time wanna lock me up. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Go hard till I'm dead and go. Yeah. Gang like records, gang like records, lay him on his back. Yeah. Hunger driving my motivation, no tolerance for the short of patience. Skip gold, do not collect to run it. That's the shit that got me dreaming robberies. My pops left it with the block that father me. Got a problem, load the weapon, that's how you saw me, that's what it taught to me. And it's how I face don't bother me. Put me in the direction where the bottle be. It's just how it's born to be. Some come to this world with diamonds and pearls, some come to poverty. But knowing that teach us right and wrong, how could you say that we wrong? This is all we know, so gotta be right. Or maybe it's left, but it's all we got left. Not to love until my last breath. Truly, peace and love to the ones that knew me and fuck the rest. I mean it, and she know. But if I walk out this door, it might be for the last time. They say the stars burn the brightest right before they die. That's why I tell her I love her just in case today's my day to shine. Father, forgive me for I sin, and I swear I probably sin again. Tell me whose blood is this on my hands, cause I can't remember. And when my night go, I allegedly in the room. All my thugs, pump drugs, dump slugs, grave dug. Nah, you ain't one of us. If you want it, better be ready to kill for it. If you want it, better be ready to kill for it. All my thugs, pump drugs, dump slugs, grave dug. Nah, you ain't one of us. If you want it, better be ready to die for it.
Oh, I'm remembering this now. I once saw a housefly fly under the shower head and land on the center of the shower head. Stop for a second, get up and fly away again. So what? The water was running. I'm not even joking. I don't know why I'm thinking of that now.
You want it, better be ready to die for it. That early morning hustler shit. Cocaine in the pot, stirring till it's thick. Throw some ice in the mix and shock it. That's how you rock that shit. Now here comes the magic trick. Abracadabra, bitch. The song disappears quick as your baby mama's welfare check. This the life, yeah. Fuck you, pay me. I brought the bitch with me just to show you I ain't playing. All the goons in this motherfucker know what I'm saying. Bet the streets gon' feel me. Know these cops still wanna kill me or confine me. But first you gotta find me, so come find me. You bitch ass, punk ass cops, y'all can kiss on my cock. This is something that you'll never stop. Every keep up with these tracks even after I'm locked, even after my heart stops. I'm here to teach the next generation to say fuck the cops. Same way I was taught, yeah, same way I was taught. Yeah, fuck the cops, fuck the cops. All my thugs, pump drugs, dump slugs, great thug. Nah, you ain't one to bust. If you want it, better be ready to kill for it. If you want it, better be ready to kill for it. All my thugs, pump drugs, dump slugs, great thug. Nah, you ain't one to bust. If you want it, better be ready to die for it. If you want it, better be ready to die for it.
Tuesday, a daytime high of 8 and lows -1.
Fuck you, I already checked up on your work, bitch. I got the Frogger connection. I call it the Frogger phone.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour on All News Radio, we'll have more on another outbreak
the Angler phone didn't want to answer, that's why I had to
this
call
time in Quebec. The plant is due to close on Wednesday after sending more than 170 workers home who were either sick or had come into contact with someone who was. The first outbreak at a plant in Alberta was the center of the largest outbreak in Canada, with over 1,500 infections connected to that facility. This is All News Radio. Couples who had plans to tie the knot are adjusting plans to the new times. While many are choosing to push back their big day, some are pushing ahead virtually, like this Canadian couple. Sarah Freemark reports the virtual venue allowed a lot more guests to celebrate the occasion.
When COVID-19 made it impossible for Daniel and Amber to move forward with their May 2nd wedding here in Alberta, they adjusted to the new normal of virtual reality.
I was thinking to myself, I was like, I still want the May 2nd as their anniversary date. That's the day we planned. That's the day we hope for.
The couple, who have now been together for 7 years, decided distance wouldn't stop their special day, and they took to Facebook Live.
Our witnesses and guests, basically, to keep safe distance, they brought their own camera and used their phones to videotape it from a distance.
The wedding was meant to include only 100 people, but because they went virtual, nearly 600 people took part in the ceremony.
People that neither of us have spoken to really or seen in years are like, oh my God, I'm so happy I got to be a part of your day. I got emotional in it even, and people are so excited.
In Calgary for City News, I'm Sarah Freemark.
A Montreal hair salon that's been shut down since the beginning of the pandemic has been turned into a makeshift food bank and shelter for refugees seeking asylum in Canada. Melina Jubilaro is in Montreal and joins us with more.
In 1 month, Maite Cabrera and a small group have helped over 200 families and have received over $3,600 in donations and clothing.
When you know there's a family in the streets that they have nowhere to stay, you have to find a way. Like, I cannot leave them like that.
Cabrera is looking ahead. She's thinking of creating an organization with a team of lawyers, social workers, and psychologists to help refugees.
I have to do it. I wake up early in the morning. I come home very late. But I need to help people, and it's just like, it changed my life completely.
If you want to know more about this initiative, email twinsentertainment514@gmail.com. In Montreal, Melina Jubilaro, CD News.
Britain's Prime Minister is laying out the path for lifting restrictions imposed over the COVID-19 pandemic. Dave Packer has the latest.
In an address broadcast to the nation, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson announcing a modest easing of the country's coronavirus lockdown, warning.
We've been through the initial peak, but it's coming
I'm allowed to wish death on
mountain.
people. I'm almost there.
It's often more dangerous.
Giving the green light to folks who've been cooped up for weeks to get out.
From this Wednesday,
be careful what you wish.
We want to encourage people to take more and even unlimited amounts of outdoor exercise.
But saying people are still obeying social distancing rules or be fined.
Yes.
Johnson saying this is not the time to simply end the lockdown. Dave Packer, ABC News.
This is All News Radio.
We believe in being accountable to you, the listener, which is why we're a member of the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council. As a member, we're committed to upholding the highest standards of broadcasting and adhering to specific codes of conduct. If you have a comment on what you've heard, contact us or visit the CBSC's website, cbsc.ca. We'll respond to your concerns and send you information on the council and its codes.
Together, we are making a difference to stop the spread of COVID-19. As businesses and workplaces begin to reopen, we all have to continue doing our part to keep everyone safe. Remember to practice physical distancing or wear a face covering if physical distancing is a challenge, and wash your hands thoroughly and often. Whether inside or out, stay safe and save lives. For more information, visit ontario.ca/coronavirus, paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Why should I? You should be that close. Every day, we're giving you critical information on COVID-19.
You touch a doorknob and lick your hand after, that's your fault.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, Canadian
Good morning, buddy. Holy fuck.
Stats Canada releases its report on grocery sales up to April 11.
They've got one of those old school coffee.
As the coronavirus pandemic has led to unique spending habits as Canadians remain at home.
I bet you spend $1 every hour.
By 2.7% in Friday trading, while Metro lost 0.2%. And U.S. stock futures did move lower at the open of trade on Sunday. Dow futures fell by 0.3%. That's more than 40 points. While the S&P and NASDAQ futures also dropped by at least 0.3%. However, it was not long before futures changed direction and rose by at least 0.3%. It comes as Wall Street logged its first weekly gain in 3, higher by at least 2.5% for the week. As for the TSX, it's coming off a weekly gain of more than 2.3%. On Friday, it locked in a 5-day rally up by 132 points to 14,966. In electronic trade, we saw gold drop more than 0.3%, while oil in electronic trade fell more than 2% as it comes off a weekly gain of more than 25%. On Friday, the Canadian dollar was higher by 23/100 cent, closing at 71.80 cents U.S. Today, earnings are expected from Under Armour, Premium Brands Holdings, and Tilray. And with more on what we're watching, here's Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini.
And just as stocks have snapped back from their pandemic lows in March, it won't be long before the job market snaps back as well, according to some, including Neil Della over at Renaissance Macro Research.
I'm confident that in the next 12 to 18 months, we have seen the worst jobs report of our lifetime in terms of the establishment month-over-month number, but we'll also see the best.
More earnings from the battered travel and entertainment industry are due today as Marriott reports first quarter results. We'll also hear from Park Hotels and Resorts and casino operator Caesars Entertainment. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
At the Business Center, I'm Carl Garnage.
Find a car today, a much better way. Visit OntarioCars.ca.
Now, see here, I know you're an expert on buying a car and all, and I appreciate that, I really do. But do you suppose that maybe, just maybe, everybody could use a little help?
Sell a piece to a priest, then I would. Cause I'm about my paper, dog, it's all good. When I roll up my dough up, cocky like Rocky Balboa. Product that the devil gon' throw up. Stacking higher than the Twin Towers. Blow up on the scene like the fucking two towers. All I want in life is a fucking money shower. So what I got for months is a brick coat power. My eyes long faded, so I got raided. What never get got from a pig made it. Laughing at these suckers, it's all smooth sailing. Patron in my cup, in the cup, world motherfucking toasted. Puff another blunt to be toasted. If a motherfucking hates, then we rolling. So much money, so much riches. All my life I've been thug living.
Do it again. Do it. Oh, yeah, I can do it again. Motherfucker. I want to know what the fuck that sound is. I just gotta know. It's so consistent.
That's the first to break, and then it's on. Tell my baby mama I ain't never coming home. So much money, so much bitches. All my life I've been I ain't never coming home. Boys in the hood, got toys in the hood. House party pumps make noise in the hood. When I think back, dollar sign, blink that. Fuck a bitch with a fat ass, I'm the master. Sitting in the cell, probably like an aster. Living in the hell, but my seed not a bastard. Homie, keep it gangster, lane up the faster. Product of the devil, bass be the crack in the coke, be the treble. Personifying everything, and I don't give a fuck if you don't understand. I'm on another level. You can't tell me nothing, but try and tell me something. Why the fuck you hating when I'm rolling by something? Probably cause I'm doing big things and you frontin'. Cheers to my haters, cheers to my dogs. Life of a gangster, playing till I fall. Trying to stay on top till a motherfucker fall. So much money, so much riches. All my life I've been thug living. Got the first to break, and then it's on. Tell my baby mama I ain't never coming home. So much honey, so much bitches. All my life I've been straight living. Got the first to break, and then it's on. Till I'm in the beast, I ain't never coming home. Stove for a heater, now I pack a heater. Money coming quicker than a motherfucking cheetah. Fresh to death, sipping the book, sitting with a conversation. Senoritas, I'm a soldier. To my deceased on the boulder. Living and giving a fuck the weight of the world on my shoulder. Haven't never had a harder clip. Yeah, I got this shit. Got bitches on my job, on the capital.
Advisors and safety glasses. That's Lori Paris reporting the Cargill plant in Alberta ignited a wave of COVID-19 outbreaks in that province.
Prior to restarting business at the plant, there have been 2 deaths and over 1,500 infections connected to the facility. And despite facing heavy backlash, the company went ahead with reopening its doors last Monday.
As Ontario's economy begins to crawl back to normal, many are wondering if it's safe to return to work. Tim Chapman spoke with an employment lawyer in Toronto about the rights of employees and employers.
If your employer orders you back to work, Adam Savalio says there's no real reference for right and wrong.
In an unprecedented time, this is a crisis. There's no guidebook. There's no manual book to go by except what's
last time we had this problem, everybody just died. It was the one back to work.
Cram all these
you survived your boss's death.
Savalio says there has to be an appreciation for employers trying to restart their workplaces, but we can't do so at the risk of employee safety.
Really, what we're looking at is something that's not really been seen before in Ontario law, that we can gauge and say, okay, that's where we fit, and here's the proper protocols. It's going to be a guessing game for a little while.
Savalio says we shouldn't be looking at employees and employers working against each other. We should be working together in what is an unprecedented time. I'm Tim Chapman.
It's been no secret that COVID-19 has had a devastating effect on Canada's seniors, particularly those in long-term care homes. Experts say this could have been avoided if these homes were kept up to date. In Ontario, there are reasons for optimism, with more people being tested, the number of daily cases down, and more businesses slated to open up on Monday. Stuart McGinn joins us with more.
In Ontario tomorrow, any retail business with a street entrance can open and offer curbside pickup to customers, while Ontario's provincial parks will also open for daytime hours, but Park Patrol will be there, ensuring people maintain physical distancing.
What do you guys know? We're going to come around to the driver's side.
Experts hone in on those hit hardest by COVID-19. Canada's long-term care homes, some telling the CBC, crowded shared rooms and outdated facilities have only made the virus worse to those who know are most vulnerable to it. And Dr. Teresa Tam agrees more needs to be done to protect them.
If we are willing to give what it takes to address these weaknesses and to provide better support to poorly compensated workers, we stand a better chance of maintaining control of the virus.
Chief Public Health Officer calls the situation in our country's long-term care homes a national crisis, with residents accounting for more than 80% of Canada's COVID-19 related fatalities. I'm Stuart McGinn.
Now in BC, Medical Health Officer for Vancouver Coastal Health, Dr. Michael Schwant, says they learned from the experiences of Quebec and Ontario and what we're seeing in outbreaks internationally. He says staff started extensive use of personal protective equipment, visits were cut off, and those diagnosed were isolated, and they also tested for the virus around the facilities.
Staff have gone and taken swabs from key areas within the facilities, and in some cases they've found COVID-19, the virus causing COVID-19 to contaminate equipment or parts of the facility. So, for example, equipment cards or blood pressure cups have in a few cases actually been contaminated with COVID-19.
Over 400 residents and staff at BC care homes have tested positive for the virus.
The last of Vancouver's public golf courses is set to reopen this week. The broader future for the golf industry remains in question due to the pandemic shutdowns. As Toby Kerr tells us, this doesn't have anything to do with the lack of available tee times. Unlike other provinces, such as next door in Alberta, golf courses here in BC have mostly remained open during the pandemic shutdown. However, this doesn't mean they're not struggling. Erica Beck, BC Regional Director of the National Golf Course Owners Association, says key revenue sources have dried up during this shutdown.
Golf courses definitely have and host a lot of weddings, and birthday parties, anniversary celebrations, graduations, corporate events.
Saying she's not sure what the broader impact on the industry will be, Beck notes that most golf courses are currently only running at a half to a third of their normal staffing levels. BC's golf sector employs about 44,000 people annually. I'm Toby Kerr.
Vancouver's beaches were busy this weekend, and a police officer is among those expressing concern online. But as Tim James reports, the park board isn't as worried about a lack of physical distancing.
You know, the photos you see online are kind of a lot of that sort of Twitter shaming kind of photography.
Camille Dumont, the chair of the Vancouver Park Board, says if you're looking at a photo, it's tough to prove groups aren't 2 meters apart.
Sometimes it looks really shocking, and sometimes it is.
That's one over
video. Park rangers are also out there educating people. Meantime, Shauna Wilton, the deputy general manager of the Park Board, says photos don't explain who lives together.
They continue to trust that the people have had 2 months of physical distancing practice, and they are still keeping an eye on that.
Constable Lee Martin with the VPD has posted photos of English Bay with the caption, "You wouldn't know we're in the midst of pandemic by looking at the crowded Vancouver beaches today." I'm Tim James. Many First Nations leaders across the country have called on community members to return to the land to hunt and gather medicine to help battle COVID-19. Dean National Chief Norman Yakalaya says people in the Northwest Territories are hunting and fishing and sharing the bounty with the community. But he says it's also reconnecting people with tradition.
When you're on the land with your family, you learn to live together, survive together, work together. You get your chance to work with your children.
He says a lot of people in the area know stories about how the 1928 flu epidemic decimated the region, and so they are taking precautions.
We continue to work towards flattening our curve here in Canada, but elsewhere around the world, countries are fighting their battles with the virus. Joey Keeney has details from around the globe.
Australia's Health Minister Greg Hunt says his government supports a European Union motion for an independent investigation into the origins of COVID-19 in China. Australia has been calling for such an inquiry for some weeks to better understand how the coronavirus started in Wuhan and to be able to counter such pandemics in the future. The move has drawn a sharp response from China, which is Australia's #1 trading partner. In Spain, certain regions can scale back lockdown measures starting Monday with limited seating at bars, restaurants, and other public places. But Madrid and Barcelona, the country's largest cities, will remain shut down. An Indian Navy warship carrying 698 of its citizens stranded in the Maldives because of the coronavirus lockdown has docked at a port in the country. This is the first vessel to arrive as a part of India's massive repatriation mission. India is also using its national air carrier Air India to bring back thousands of stranded citizens from the Persian Gulf, the UK, and elsewhere in Asia. Worldwide, over 4 million people have been confirmed infected by the coronavirus, and more than 1.4 million people have recovered. I'm Joey Keeney.
Phrasing sometimes throws me off.
It's 39 minutes past the hour. You're listening to All News Radio.
In uncertain times, it's been famously said, look for the helpers. At Amica, we think you should also look for the seniors. Seniors have so much wisdom and experience to share. More than anyone else,
This is how it is, it's how we do in the city. When he walks about his sheep, I don't feel no pity. Gotta be the fucking kitty, ever see so it's nitty bitty.
if they end up reassuring you. A message from Amica Senior Lifestyle.
How much money would you like to save just by doing something you're already doing? 15 or 25%? How about 30%? With Allstate, safe drivers can save 30% just by doing something they're already doing. Driving safe. That's right, 30% just by driving safe. Visit Allstate.
Black coat on the feet, you know what it is. Yeah, I came from a broken home. Since a young young age, hopping on my own with a bag of rocks and a cell phone. This the world I live in, feed myself sinning, doomed from the start, yeah, fuck from the beginning. I got work today and I'm already late, probably ain't gon' make it. Give me a chance and I'm gon' take it. Yeah, I'm out in a pirate. I put my hopes and dreams inside of pirates and turn the stove on. A life like this is hard to carry on. My family don't get what they need until the work on. I know where to find the devil, that ain't hard, but for some reason I still ain't found God. Lost soul walking with the damn. Pull the trigger, hope that it don't jam. Rather get caught with it than without it where I am. This life got me dreaming about a better way. Nah, cause I'm a realist, I know nothing gon' change. Yeah, gang life got me dreaming about a better way. Nah, cause I'm a realist, I know nothing gon' change. Yeah, this life got me dreaming about a better way. Nah, cause I'm a realist, I know nothing gon' change. Yeah, gang life got me dreaming about a better way. Nah, cause I'm a realist, I know nothing gon' change. Yeah. I'm a shooting star, running in the sky. Send God a text, still waiting for a reply. I daydream a lot, dreaming of the day I won't have a scheme and plot. Not ready for the grave yet, not ready for that box. Yeah, life in the slums, it ain't much, but it's where we wrong. God love it, steady dark, see the cops, me mugging middle finger up like fuck them. Another day in the life, but we the nigga help you make it the right to say homie.
To recreate their office environment, according to a survey done by staffing agency Robert Half, 85% of Canadian workers want the option of working from home even after the pandemic. But Carter says the current standard of video conference calls has its limitations.
This could be the virtual office space in the future.
It's a glimpse into what heading into work may soon look like. And he believes if more companies jump on board, visiting a client for a meeting, for example, could all happen online. In Toronto, Erica Natividad, City News.
It's 43 minutes past the hour. You're listening to All News Radio.
Past the hour.
Big story. I'm your host, Jordan Keith Rawlings. If the COVID-19 headlines are too fast, we can slow them down. Listen at thebigstorypodcast.ca or wherever you get your podcasts.
When you use a WarAmps key tag, you protect your keys. If you lose your keys, the finder can call the WarAmps or drop them in any mailbox. And the WarAmps will return them to you by courier for free. Order your key tags today at waramps.ca.
The following you've heard perhaps hundreds of times, but it's never meant more than it does now. Nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville. Nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville. Nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville. And now, Lexus of Oakville is open, with every precaution in place to keep you safe, because nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville.
Lexus of Oakville is looking after you, keeping you safe by arranging guest visits by appointment only. Book your time to visit at lexusofoakville.ca.
As an essential service, Roto-Rooter wants you to know that they remain ready to help you with any of your drain, plumbing, or disinfection needs. Thank you for understanding as they take preventative measures to ensure everyone's health is a top priority. Contact them at rotorooter.com.
This is All News Radio.
Good morning, I'm Jazz Karen Cooner. Here are the top stories right now. Another Cargill meat processing plant has experienced an outbreak of COVID-19, and this time it's in Montreal. At least 64 workers have tested positive at the facility. This comes as the Alberta facility had just reopened after being closed for 2 weeks. Prior to restarting business at the plant, there had been 2 deaths and over 1,500
It's not 2 weeks and then it goes away from everybody. It's not how it works.
The union says Cargill implemented further safety measures, which includes installing plexiglass where employees work, providing safety visors and safety glasses. And Canada's seniors have been devastated by COVID-19, and especially those living in long-term care homes. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Teresa Tam says more needs to be done during this national crisis, with seniors' homes being crowded with having shared rooms and having outdated facilities.
I'm Sam Mike with Sportsnet. A return for pro sports Saturday evening as fighters hit the octagon in front of stands without fans for UFC 249 down in Jacksonville, Florida. President Dana White spoke with ESPN about Justin Gaethje's interim lightweight win over Tony Ferguson for the championship.
He fought the perfect fight, and I thought, I don't want to take anything away from Gaethje, but Tony looked slow tonight. Tony looked old. He looked off his game. And I would imagine it has something to do with him cutting weight twice in a month. in my opinion.
Meanwhile, Canadian George St. Pierre, who ruled the UFC welterweight division before putting a bow on a glittering career by winning the middleweight title in his final outing, is headed to the UFC Hall of Fame. And the success of the NFL's virtual draft and the uncertainty surrounding the resumption of hockey this season has raised the possibility of the NHL draft being held before the Stanley Cup final. The draft had been scheduled for June 26th and 27th, but it was postponed due to the pandemic. Now the NHL is considering having it earlier in June. Unlike the NFL, which held its draft as usual in the middle of its offseason, the NHL would be holding its draft before the season is complete. That means teams would not be able to trade players. There would be a lack of clarity over the next year's salary cap, and the draft order could be determined before all the games are played. There are mixed feelings about the idea among executives. And a 78 to 82 game season, 7 teams per league in the playoffs instead of 5, with the top teams getting a bye into the division series. And players are expected to be asked to take an additional pay cut. Those topics, among others, are expected to be discussed by Major League Baseball team owners during a conference call Monday. If approved, the plan will be presented to the union on Tuesday. Sports on the 15s and the 45s, or really anytime at sportsnet.ca.
You're listening to All News Radio. Young people who might already be struggling to find work due to the COVID-19 shutdowns are likely to suffer even longer-term problems as they begin their careers. Lisa Stacy has more on some stark new analysis from TD Bank.
TD senior economist James Marple is warning of permanent income scarring for those graduating and hoping to enter the workforce during this time. He notes it will take around 10 years to catch up to where they would have been had they graduated during an economic upswing. And he says coming into the workforce at a time like this has longer-term impacts.
If you graduate in a downturn, your lifetime earnings are about 5% lower than those who graduate when the unemployment rate is lower.
Stats show about 30% of all job losses in Canada during this downturn have been for those under 25. This comes as major youth employers in BC, such as the PNE, remain sidelined. I'm Lisa Stacy.
Is your kid stuck on a homework question? During the pandemic, parents have probably been faced several times with a question that even they might not know the answer to. Well, the Prime Minister has this message for you.
Well, as a teacher, I want to help. If you've encountered challenges or problems that are really tough and you need a little extra help with, why don't you reach out?
You can tweet the problem using the hashtag Canada Homework Help, and his office will try and help out. Thousands of Fort McMurray residents remained out of their homes as they clean up from major flooding last week and deal with insurance claims. Officials say more than 3,000 residents are still displaced after ice jams on the Athabasca and Clearwater rivers led to flooding and forced 13,000 to flee to northern Alberta City last week. Celeste Power is Vice President for Western Canada with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. She says the flood was devastating for northern Alberta residents and it's not clear how many will be covered by insurance.
Overnight flood insurance is relatively new in Canada. Insurers came out with products over the last 5 years. And so while 13 insurers are offering overnight flood coverage in Alberta, it is an optional product that you have to add on to your policy.
I'd be very upset.
Power says only about half of Albertans have actually opted in for the insurance, but she adds it's further complicated by restrictions or higher costs on insurance in flood-prone areas. It's 15 minutes past the hour. You're listening to All News Radio.
This is 680 News.
Toronto. Is that what they said?
Insurance companies are fooled by television actors pretending to be tough lawyers or law firms that claim to be the best, only to sell your case to others. At Bergman's Freire, we built our reputation among peers and in the courtroom where it matters. We offer compassionate and dignified legal representation of accident victims. Our experienced lawyers will handle your case personally and see that you get the compensation you deserve. And a no-fee guarantee means that you don't pay until your case is settled. Bergman's Freire Personal Injury Lawyers. Time, justice, trial proven. Visit us at bplawyers.ca.
The safety of those around you is more important than ever. The government of Canada has stated that the use of a non-medical mask or facial covering can be an additional measure you can take to protect others around you. It's important we keep the supply of medical masks for frontline healthcare workers. CanadaMaskSupply.ca offers personal, non-medical masks and face shields at reasonable prices. Proudly made in Canada for Canadians. Buy non-medical masks and face shields now at CanadaMaskSupply.ca. The News Watch
never stops.
This is 680 News.
From the 680 News Traffic Center, I'm Michael Ranger. Ramp closure now affecting the eastbound 401 Express. That ramp to the northbound 400. They've shut this down for maintenance. You can still access the northbound 400 using the collector. So when the collectors and express split as you're approaching Islington, if you do want to go northbound 400, make sure you get yourself into the collector lanes. That's going to be your only way to access the northbound 400 as of right now. Continuing on the eastbound 401, some construction east of the 412. 2 left lanes are gone. Westbound side of the highway at Brock Street, crews working in the 2 left lanes. No delays in either spot. St. Dennis Drive closed in both directions at Don Mills for a collision investigation. Next report's at 3:01. Now let's check your forecast.
A daytime high of 8 on your Monday. Cool and snowy till about 8 a.m. Overcast conditions for much of the day. A low of -2. Tuesday, partly cloudy skies with a daytime high of 8 once more. A low of -1. Wednesday, we're back in the double digits. Sunny skies and low of 4. Your high for today, 8 degrees.
You're listening to All News Radio. An Alberta researcher has found promise in pot for treating COVID-19. Darcy Robchan reports just try to avoid smoking it.
Dr. Igor Kovalchuk stresses he doesn't want people to start inhaling cannabis en masse, but the University of Lethbridge researcher has studied 400 strains of the plant, and he claims some cannabis extracts are showing signs of limiting the number of virus receptors in a person's tissue. Dr. Kovalchuk says, imagine your body is a building, and the virus is thousands of people wanting to get inside. The more doors you remove, the less chance the virus has to enter.
If literally the virus stands around those doors unable to enter for long, it will be eliminated.
Still trying to determine what the active ingredient is, Dr. Kovalchuk says the anti-inflammatory properties of high CBD strains have shown promise, meaning patients could take a high dose of the medication without feeling high. But no 2 cannabis varieties are the same. In Edmonton,
so what?
Darcy Robchan, City News.
What's the one thing got to do with the other?
Conspiracy theories are running rampant during the pandemic, even calling some to set fire to cell phone towers, believing the rollout of the 5G network could be aiding in the spread of COVID-19. Experts say people often turn to these fringe beliefs when they feel out of control or helpless when it comes to the world around them. Shelby Lee joins us with more
studies by the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection determined there is no negative health effects to 5G. Public health officials say that even if a small number of people buy into conspiracy theories, damage can be limited if the broader population has a herd immunity against disinformation.
Wow, listen to all those fucking key fucking words.
They're concerned about physical distancing and they're being careful. Then the overall population is safe. That is to say, you don't need 100% of people behaving in a way to limit the spread.
Now, experts say it can be difficult to turn people away from conspiracy theories once they bought into them, as many people who believe in conspiracy theories can be distrustful of government and may be more useful for friends and family to talk to those people. In Ottawa, Shelby Lee, City News.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced a modest easing of the country's COVID-19 lockdown, sketching the outlines of a roadmap of how further restrictions can be lifted in the coming months. Ben Thomas brings us the latest.
Thanks to you, we protected our NHS and saved many thousands of lives. And so I know, you know, that it would be madness now to throw away that achievement by allowing a second spike.
In a televised address to the nation, Johnson said people who can't work from home, such as those in construction or manufacturing jobs, should be actively encouraged to go to work this week.
This only suggests that you should
outdoor
be making
exercise
stuff
once a day will be lifted.
We want to encourage people to take more and even unlimited amounts of outdoor exercise.
According to Johns Hopkins tally, Britain's death toll from COVID-19 is second only to the United States. I'm Ben Thomas.
You're listening to All News Radio.
At PEO Leadership, I'm surrounded by other business leaders who challenge me to become better. Les Mandelbaum, founder and CEO of Umbra. Leaders really need to step
Perspectives. PEO leadership is more than peer-to-peer advisory. It's a community of top executives with global experience.
Our retail landscape is rapidly changing. PEO leadership has been vital in helping us navigate through this.
The time to step up and lead is now. Go to PEO-leadership.com.
First, your disability insurer denies your long-term disability claim, and then your employer threatens to fire you if you don't return to work. Sound familiar? My name is Aaron Waxman, and if your disability insurer denies your disability claim for any reason, or if your employer threatens to fire you because you're too sick to work, call me at 416-661-4878. And don't worry about upfront legal fees, because there are none. At my law firm, we only get paid when you get paid. And before you call, you should always remember that there are no bad questions. 416-661-4878, or on your cell phone at pound LTD.
Every hour, there's new information about the coronavirus.
Now more than ever, turn to All News Radio.
We'll break down what you need to know to stay safe.
This is All News Radio.
Good morning. Canadian grocers are expected to be in the spotlight today. Stats Canada releases its report on grocery sales up to April 11th. And analysts are curious to see the data as the coronavirus pandemic has led to unique spending habits as Canadians remain at home. On Bay, shares of Longmont rose by 2.7% in Friday trading, while Metro lost 0.2%. And U.S. stock futures did move lower at the open of trade on Sunday. Dow futures fell by 0.3%, that's more than 40 points, while the S&P and NASDAQ futures also dropped by at least 0.3%. However, it was not long before futures changed direction and rose by at least 0.3%. It comes as Wall Street logged its first weekly gain in 3, higher by at least 2.5% for the week. As for the TSX, it's coming off a weekly gain of more than 2.3%. On Friday, it locked in a 5-day rally up by 132 points to 14,966. In electronic trade, we saw gold drop more than 0.3%, while oil in electronic trade fell more than 2% as it comes off a weekly gain of more than 25%. On Friday, the Canadian dollar was higher by 23/100 cent, closing at 71.80 cents U.S. Today, earnings are expected from Under Armour, Premium Brands Holdings, and Tilray. And with more on what we're watching, here's Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini.
And just as stocks have snapped back from their pandemic lows in March, it won't be long before the job market snaps back as well, according to some, including Neil Dutta over at Renaissance Macro Research.
I'm confident that in the next 12 to 18 months, we have seen the worst jobs report of our lifetime in terms of the establishment.
Stop cursing us.
More earnings from the battered travel and entertainment industry are due today as Marriott reports first quarter results. We'll also hear from Park Hotels and Resorts and casino operator Caesars Entertainment. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
At the Business Center, I'm Carl Garnett.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of the podcast Chatter That Matters. Thanks to the incredible support of RBC, we're focusing on the heart of the Canadian economy, small businesses. We're all experiencing sudden change, but in Christy Knowles' case, it was permanent.
Michelle Kaufman founded the company. She passed away at 45 years old. It was incredibly tragic.
Christy draws upon the legacies of founders of North Star, rebrands the company, creates new products. Today, Mother draws in 5,000 stores across North America. But with such rapid growth comes complexities. Our experts step in to help Christy. Download Chatter That Matters wherever you
all these people are experts on
thanks again to RBC for your support.
What do you do? Well, I'm an expert. What do you do?
As an essential service,
So I do what I do. You're an
they
expert at
remain
what I
ready
do.
to help you with any of your drain, plumbing, or disinfection needs. Thank you for understanding as they take preventative measures to ensure everyone's health is a top priority. Contact them at rotorooter.com.
680 News is CFTRAM.
Toronto.
Now, taking a look at the national weather forecast. In Calgary, mainly cloudy and 9. In Edmonton, a mix of sun and cloud and 11. In Vancouver, mainly cloudy and a high of 24.
Number 1 for breaking news. This is All News Radio.
Good morning. It's Monday, May 11th. I'm Josh Ritchie.
And I'm Josh Karen Cooner. Here's what's making news right now.
How'd you know I'm Richie, Josh?
After over 900 employees tested positive for COVID-19 at a Cargill meat packing plant in Alberta, now 64 employees have tested positive at a facility in Quebec.
Returning back to work during the pandemic. What does that mean? What are your rights? We spoke to a local employment lawyer about exactly that.
The rest of Vancouver's golf courses will soon reopen, but with secondary revenue like banquets and weddings still on hold, the industry is facing a bleak summer.
As governments around the world pour billions into finding a vaccine, even if one is developed, getting it out to the public could be a monumental challenge.
In sports, big news from the Ultimate Fighting Championship following UFC 249 Saturday night. More at 15.
Attention turns to Canadian grocers today as StatsCan releases its latest report on grocery sales during the coronavirus pandemic. Well, U.S. stock futures moved in both directions after the open of trade.
From the 680 News Traffic Center, I'm Michael Ranger. Eastbound 401 express ramp to the northbound 400 now shut down for maintenance. You're able to access the north 400 using the collector ramp. Express and collector split as you approach Islington, so if you do want to go northbound on the 400, you will need to get yourself into the collector lanes again from the express. Currently blocked off for some maintenance. Looking at city streets in Vaughan, testing closed in both directions between Pine Valley and Weston. That's for a fire investigation. And a fire investigation has a stretch of Kennedy Road closed both northbound and southbound from Merlin to Brickstock Road. That's between Ellesmere and Lawrence. Your next report is at 3:11. Now let's check your forecast.
A daytime high of 8 degrees on your Monday. Our seasonal average high is closer to 17 degrees, so much cooler than that. We're also expecting some snow to wrap up by about 8 a.m. or so, and then overcast conditions for much of the day, the sun poking through in the late afternoon. A low of -2. Your high for today, 8 degrees.
We begin in Quebec, where a meat processing plant south of Montreal is temporarily closing after at least 64 workers tested positive for COVID-19.
Madison Fitzpatrick has the details.
A COVID-19 outbreak has closed a Quebec Cargill meat processing plant after 13% of their employees test positive for the virus. More than 170 workers were sent home last week, either because they were sick or have come in contact with someone showing symptoms. The facility will officially close on Wednesday so workers can continue to be tested. So far, 30 employees have tested negative, and the testing is expected to last until Friday. A Cargill spokesperson says the company has implemented safety measures, including plexiglass between workers, providing masks, visors, and safety goggles. This is the second outbreak at a Canadian Cargill facility, a Cargill beef packing plant in High River, Alberta, where more than 900 workers tested positive, reopened last Monday after a 2-week shutdown. I'm Madison Fitzpatrick.
As provinces begin the slow process of reopening their economies and people start returning to the workplace, questions surround the rights and responsibilities of employees and employers in the aftermath of COVID-19. Tim Chapman spoke with an employment lawyer in order to find some answers.
Adam Savalio, partner at Scarphone Hawkins LLP, says the biggest question is, do I have to return?
There is an obligation for employees to return. There's no outright rights to deny a return to work simply because there's COVID-19. There must be some other grounds, like you're self-isolating, or you must get one of the other protected leaves of absence in Ontario.
Just a general concern about COVID-19 doesn't give an employee the right not to return, but if they do say they feel unsafe, Savalio says it's a song and dance between employee and employer.
It's an onus shift, and yes, I can go back to work, but the employer has to be very careful about the circumstances that they're recalling the employee, because they don't want to cause harm to their employees, for not taking the proper steps, protocols, having the proper policies in place.
At the end of the day, Savalio says these are unprecedented times, and the best workplaces are the ones that work together. I'm Tim Chapman.
The issues surrounding COVID-19 and long-term care homes have been deemed a national tragedy by Canada's top doctor in her update on Saturday. This comes as Ontario's Premier Doug Ford announced provincial parks will begin reopening in that province today. Stuart McGinn joins us with the latest.
Only 1 in 5 of Canada's COVID-19 cases are from a long-term care resident. They make up nearly 80% of the country's fatalities, and medical experts are calling on the federal government to step in to not only fix the situation, but also to build more modern facilities. The chair of the Canadian Association for Long-Term Care tells the CBC outdated buildings with narrow hallways, shared washrooms, and sometimes just a curtain used to separate a 4-bed room have only helped to spread this virus faster, a reality Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Teresa Tam, spoke to yesterday.
It's halfway between a hospital.
For some time.
if we make it a priority to look after the most vulnerable in our society, we can change the outcome of this pandemic.
Those problems continue. Still slow. Measures are being rolled out to open up certain provinces. In Ontario tomorrow, provincial parks are reopening with people encouraged to still maintain physical distancing, while retail stores with a street entrance will get back to business, provided they can offer curbside pickup. I'm Stuart McGinn. British Columbia's top doctor says the province was hit early and tragically in the long-term care sector. Dr. Bonnie Henry says the Lynn Valley Care Centre in North Vancouver was the first facility to report a COVID-19 infection on March 6th, and the outbreak was declared over on Thursday. She says authorities learned from that outbreak.
The measures that we took because of that early outbreak, really the team approach to a SWAT team approach, we call it, to going into every facility that has an outbreak, the very sensitive surveillance we've been doing, the testing we've been doing. Many of the more recent outbreaks have been a single or two cases.
Outbreaks have been declared in 34 facilities in BC since the start of the pandemic. The virus has since been cleared out in over half of those long-term care homes.
Golf is among the industries in British Columbia anticipating a reopening of the broader economy in the hope of financial recovery. As Toby Kerr tells us, this comes as the last of the public courses in Vancouver is set to reopen this week.
Well, golf courses have mostly remained open in BC amid the shutdown. Many are still struggling with a lack of revenue due to a loss of secondary income from things such as banquets, weddings, and corporate events. Erica Beck, BC Regional Director of the National Golf Course Owners Association, admits they're not sure what the broader impact on the industry will be.
I think we're probably going to be in this situation, obviously, as I'm sure everybody has heard, for the next few weeks, if not through the summer. So we just have to be patient.
Beck says most golf courses are currently running at half their normal staffing levels. The golf industry in BC employs around 44,000 people a year. I'm Toby Kerr. If you live on the West Coast or were on social media over the weekend, you may have noticed crowded beaches in Vancouver. But as Tim James reports, the park board believes there's no need to hit the panic button despite concerns around physical distancing. The photos you're seeing online may not tell the whole story.
I have to trust that people were in groups with people that were either part of their households or people that they're starting to have limited contact with.
That's Shauna Wilton, the Deputy General Manager of the Park Board.
For the most part, when you look at the groups of people, though, they are still physically distant.
Camille Dumont, the Chair of the Park Board, agrees and says if people are breaking the rules, they're on it.
All of our park rangers out and about giving people warning.
As for shutting down the beaches,
at this point, I don't think we're considering any closures at all.
A Vancouver police officer is among those expressing concerns online about the crowded beaches. I'm Tim James.
They'd all be down at the fucking beach.
First Nations leaders who called on community members to return to the land to fight the COVID-19 pandemic are seeing a resurgence of traditional practices. The National Chief Norman Yakalaya says he's seen many people in Yellowknife hunt and fish, sharing the bounty with community members. He says Indigenous people have different circumstances dealing with the pandemic, but are united together.
Indigenous people living in isolated communities, Indigenous people living in urban settings, rural settings. They are watching TV, trying to figure out this COVID-19.
He says a lot of people in the area know stories about how the 1928 flu epidemic decimated the region, and so they are taking precautions.
Countries around the world continue to fight coronavirus infections and try to flatten their curve. Joey Keeney is on the international watch.
In South Korea, the governor of the province that surrounds Seoul ordered the 2-week shutdowns of all nightclubs, bars, and other similar entertainment facilities in his province to guard against a possible new surge of coronavirus cases, as dozens of new infections linked to clubgoers have been reported in recent days. The Seoul metropolitan area is the most densely populated in the country, where about half of South Korea's 51 million people live. Earlier this morning, South Korea reported 34 additional virus cases over the past 24 hours, the first time the country's daily jump has marked above 30 in about a month. China reported 14 new cases today, its first double-digit rise in 10 days. Most of the infections were in the northeastern province of Jilin, which prompted authorities to raise the threat level in one of its counties to high risk, just days after downgrading all regions in the country to low risk. And Italy saw people return to the streets and enjoy spending time outside. But there is confusion for shopkeepers in the country who say guidelines for reopening are not clear. I'm Joey Keeney.
This is All News Radio.
Did you know Ontario has the safest roads in North America? Increased awareness to prevent impaired driving, like calling home, taking a cab,
or having a designated driver are some of the reasons. Responsible legislation and well-researched policies and programs for serving and selling alcohol all add up to saving lives and preventing injuries. A message from Arrive Alive Drive Sober, the Smart Serve Ontario. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Thanks for driving sober.
Hi, Tom Rokiki here of Inline Fiberglass Windows and Doors. Our heroes continue to amaze us. From all of us here at Inline Fiberglass, thank you. It's important that we stay strong. Continue to check in with family, friends, and employees. Keep the conversation going. And if you ever want to start a conversation about windows and doors, we're just a click away. Book a virtual consultation at inlinefiberglass.com. Together, we will get through this.
Coronavirus updates and breaking news.
All on the Be the First to Know newsletter.
Sign up now at 680news.com/newsletters.
From the 680 News Traffic Center, I'm Michael Ranger. Eastbound 401 express ramp to the northbound 400. It is closed for maintenance. You're still able to access the north 400 using the collector ramps. When the express and the collector split approaching Islington, if you do want to go north 400, get yourself into the collectors there. That'll be your last opportunity to do so before you reach the ramps to the north 400. Teston Road in York Region is closed in both directions between Pine Valley and Weston. That's for a collision investigation. St. Dennis Drive closed in both directions at Don Mills Road, also for a collision, and Kennedy Road between Murnham Gate and Breakstock Road, that's between Ellesmere and Lawrence, it is closed for a fire investigation. Next report at 3:21. Now let's check your forecast.
A daytime high of just 8 degrees on your Monday. We're expecting some rain and snow till about 8 a.m. or so, and then cloudy conditions, a low of -2. Tuesday, partly cloudy skies with a daytime high of 8, cooler than our seasonal average high of 17 degrees and a low of -1. Your high for today, 8 degrees.
Governments worldwide are pouring billions of dollars into research and development efforts for a COVID-19 vaccine. And as Curtis Doring reports, even if an effective vaccine is found, pushing it out quickly will be a monumental challenge.
No coronavirus vaccine for humans has ever been released in the history of medical science. Now, there are over 100 in development worldwide, some of them already in human trials. But despite rosy timelines for certain politicians, infectious disease experts like Dr. Richard Besser say there's still a chance we may never find a cure for COVID-19.
There are a number of viral infections, HIV, dengue, where scientists have been working for decades and still haven't come up with a safe and effective vaccine.
We do have a few things going for us this time. Previous research into related viruses like SARS started years ago, and coronavirus does not mutate as quickly as HIV, giving us a better shot at developing a vaccine for it. That process can be sped up substantially, but there's still a risk that by moving too fast, we'll end up distributing something that actually makes the virus more dangerous, which has happened before. Then there's the huge logistical task of mass production and distribution. Normally, factory construction alone would take around 5 years. All this is not to say that we shouldn't try. It just pays to consider what a future without the coronavirus vaccine might look like. With This Week in Science, I'm Curtis Doring.
This is All News Radio.
680 News is everywhere.
Even your smart speaker.
Ask to play 680 News.
Playing 680 News.
Take this opportunity to help our most vulnerable. Long-term care homes in Ontario are hiring, and they're looking for people with skills just like yours. You can put your nursing, cooking, or cleaning experience to work. This is an important and rewarding chance to make a real difference during a time of need. Together, we can stop the spread of COVID-19. Learn more about job opportunities available at long-term care homes by visiting ontario.ca/workltc. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
I'm here with Bill Coy of Coy Brothers, and this spring we're talking about everything turning up green, like the grass on the ground.
At Coy Brothers, everything's turning up orange.
Orange? Are you talking Kubota, Bill?
Kubota zero-turn lawnmowers, tractors of all sizes, Kubota skid steers and excavators. We got lots for you to pick from.
And so many Kubota parts if you need them, from the largest Kubota dealer in Canada.
Right here in the GTA.
Don't be green with envy. Get an orange Kubota from Coy Brothers.
1919 Wilson Avenue,
was that a dig at John Deere? Holy fuck.
This is All News Radio.
Good morning, I'm Josh Ritchie. Here are the top stories right now. Another hit to a Cargill meatpacking plant in our country, an outbreak this time in Quebec, as a plant ready to close after 13% of their employees tested positive for the virus. More than 170 workers were sent home last week either because they are sick or have come into contact with someone showing symptoms. Prior to restarting business at the plant in Alberta, there have been 2 deaths and over 1,500 infections connected to the facility. And as provinces work to reopen their economies, there are questions about the rights of employees and employers heading back into work. Some people's biggest concern is, do they have the right to refuse going into the office? We spoke with an employment lawyer in Toronto who says that while you can't outright refuse work, requesting to not work from the office now makes it a song and a dance between employer and employee. And at the end of the day, these are uncertain times, and many workplaces are going to handle and tackle going back to work.
No. Let's come in. I can't come in. I'm sick.
Sportsnet, a return for pro sports Saturday evening as fighters hit the octagon in front of stands without fans for UFC 249 down in Jacksonville, Florida. President Dana White spoke with ESPN about Justin Gaethje's interim lightweight win over Tony Ferguson for his fucking guy.
I'm cutting weight.
Raised the possibility of the NHL draft being held before the Stanley Cup final. The draft had been scheduled for June 26th and 27th, but it was postponed due to the pandemic. Now the NHL is considering having it earlier in June. Unlike the NFL, which held its draft as usual in the middle of its off-season, the NHL would be holding its draft before the season is complete. That means teams would not be able to trade players. There would be a lack of clarity over the next year's salary cap, and the draft order could be determined before all the games are played. There are mixed feelings about the idea among executives. And a 78 to 82 game season, 7 teams per league in the playoffs instead of 5, with the top teams getting a bye into the division series. And players are expected to be asked to take an additional pay cut. Those topics, among others, are expected to be discussed by Major League Baseball team owners during a conference call Monday. If approved, the plan will be presented to the union on Tuesday. Sports on the 15s and the 45s, or really anytime at sportsnet.ca.
We're in week 1 of the economy's partial restart, but does everyone want
We're
to go
in
back
week
to
1.
work?
Bro, it's 3 in the fucking morning.
Of being exposed to COVID-19. Jackie Perez is finding out about your rights as an employee in this unprecedented time.
The question is, even if you can open,
look at this hardware store.
Sarah Square is a managing lawyer in Calgary, specializing in employment and labor law. She says employees should expect their employers to follow at a bare minimum the health and safety directives in Alberta and across Canada. Even before businesses consider reopening, employees should know what's being done to keep them safe when they return to work.
If you feel there's gaps in the new protocols and policies that they've put together, speak out.
Coder says employees should be given options if they can't be provided with a safe work environment. And that could mean continuing to work from home or continuing unpaid work leave.
Be really clear with the
I'd like to know what percentage of people are
Discuss with your
actually
employer
working from home.
what plan they're making to
Maybe
try
it sound
and
like
deal with some of
everybody
these
just
risks.
switched.
In Calgary, Jackie Perez, City News.
New analysis from TD Bank is projecting a somewhat dire situation for younger people hoping to enter the workforce out of the pandemic. Lisa Stacy says the study suggests both short-term challenges and longer-term setbacks.
TD senior economist James Marple notes that people under 25 have lost 30% of the jobs across Canada. He says those looking to get back into the job market after this is all over will probably have to struggle for quite some time.
But the students right now, instead of
for workers who are young people who graduate in the recession
to
repair the damage to their income.
He says the analysis also
Instead of going to
suggests young
school,
people
they're
will earn
find jobs
5%
when there
less
are
over
no
their
jobs.
lifetime than those who come out of school during healthier economic times. The analysis comes as major youth employers in BC, including the PNE, remain shut down due to the pandemic. I'm Lisa Stacy.
It's 19 minutes past the hour. You're listening to All News Radio.
Major youth
This is All News Radio on 680 News.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Brien, President and CEO of Reliance Home Comfort. Despite everything that's going on, we know that some of you may still need air conditioning, hot water, or plumbing help. I'd like to personally assure you that as an essential service, we're not only here for you 24 hours a day, every day, but also taking steps to make every visit safe for you, your family, and our team. We're grateful to our customers and indebted to our team members at Reliance. We'll get through this together. Thank you.
All right, guys, it's been a blast, but I gotta head out. Hey, Julie, you need a ride?
Thanks, John, but there's a reason I'm not driving, and I don't think you should be either.
Yeah, if she wanted to ride with someone who'd been drinking, she'd drive herself.
John, my sister's coming to get me. I'll drop you off. When a drinking driver crashes, passengers in the vehicle share the same fate. In a 2010 poll, more than 85% of Canadians said they don't ride with a drinking driver. Speak your mind. Change the conversation.ca.
Educational film.
Is 680 News.
More subtle.
From the 680 News Traffic Center, I'm Michael Ranger. Northbound 400 ramp from the eastbound 401 Express, it remains shut down. You're still able to access the North 400 from the East 401 Collectors. Collectors in the Express split approaching Islington. You'll have to get into the Collectors there if you do want to go north on the 400. That's your last opportunity to be in the collector lanes before the North 400 ramps. Looking at city streets, Teston Road in York Region, it is closed in both directions, eastbound or westbound, between Pine Valley and Weston. That's for a collision investigation. Kennedy Road closed in both directions from Murnham Gate to Brickstock Road. That's a stretch between Ellesmere and Lawrence. That's for a fire investigation. Next report at 3:31. Now let's check your forecast.
A daytime high of 8 degrees on your Monday, much cooler than our seasonal average high of 17. A snowy start and then overcast conditions, a low of -2. Partly cloudy skies on Tuesday, a daytime high of 8 and low of -1. Wednesday, we're back in the double digits, sunny skies, a daytime high of 12. Your high for today, 8 degrees.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour on All News Radio, we'll have more on another outbreak at a Cargill meatpacking plant, this time in Quebec. The plant is due to close on Wednesday after sending more than 170 workers home who were either sick or had come into contact with someone who was. The first outbreak at a plant in Alberta was the center of the largest outbreak in Canada, with over 1,500 infections connected to the facility. This is All News Radio. Couples who had plans to tie the knot are adjusting plans to the new times. While many are choosing to push back their big day, some are pushing ahead virtually, like this Canadian couple. Sarah Freemark reports the virtual venue allowed a lot more guests to celebrate the occasion.
When COVID-19 made it impossible for Daniel and Amber to move forward with their May 2nd wedding here in Alberta, they adjusted to the new normal of virtual reality.
I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I still want the May 2nd as our anniversary date. That's the date we planned. That's the date we hoped for.
The couple, who have now been together for 7 years, decided distance wouldn't stop their special day, and they took to Facebook Live.
Our witnesses and guests, basically, to keep safe distance, they brought their own camera and used their phones to videotape it from a distance.
The original wedding was meant to include only 100 people, but because
it's so simple that somebody who still uses the word videotape can use it.
People that we
How come the politicians are having such a hard time?
seen in years, you're like, oh my God, I'm so happy I got to be a part of your day. I got emotional in it even, and people are so excited.
In Calgary for City News, I'm Sarah Freemark.
A Montreal hair salon that's been shut down since the beginning of the pandemic has been turned into a makeshift food bank and shelter for refugees seeking asylum in Canada.
Everything is now a food bank and
shelter.
shelter.
In Montreal and joins us with more.
In 1 month, Maite Cabrera and a small group have helped over 200 families and have
still
received
cutting
over
hair on the side, like it's not your main
$600
thing,
in
but because
donations
you're
and
in essential
clothing.
service
You know
now,
there's
you
a
can do
family
it.
in the streets that they have nowhere to stay. You have to find a way. Like, I cannot leave them like that.
Cabrera is looking ahead. She's thinking of creating an organization with a team of lawyers, social workers, and psychologists to help refugees.
I have to do it. I wake up early in the morning. I come home very late.
Oh, I've
But
seen
I
1,000
need
of
to
these
help
coming.
people, and it's just like, it changed my life completely.
If you want to know more about this initiative, email twinsentertainment514@gmail.com. In Montreal, Melina Jubilaro, CD News.
Britain's Prime Minister is laying out the path for lifting restrictions imposed over the COVID-19 pandemic, and Dave Packer has the latest.
In an address broadcast to the nation, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson announcing a modest easing of the country's coronavirus lockdown, warning,
We've been through the initial peak, but it's coming down the mountain. It is often more dangerous.
Giving the green light to folks who've been cooped up for weeks to get out.
From this Wednesday,
dude, you're mentally ill from the COVID. It ate your brain like syphilis, eh?
Amounts of outdoor exercise.
But saying people must still obey social distancing rules or be fined. Johnson's saying this is not the time to simply end the lockdown. Dave Packer, ABC News.
You're listening to All News Radio.
A message from the Warrens. When you use the Warrens key tags, you protect your keys. If you lose your keys, the finder can call the number on the back of the tag.
3 o'clock in the morning. We're in the first week of retail opening in Ontario. Relax, bro.
For free. Order your key tags today at
Warrens.ca and make a difference in the lives of
amputees like me. Thank you.
York Catholic teachers would like to take this opportunity to recognize and thank our modern-day heroes, especially healthcare workers and first responders who provide care for patients with COVID-19
Teachers
and risk
are
their
now
own lives
nurses
to
and
save
orderlies,
the lives of others.
whatever.
They, in conjunction with those providing and delivering food
What
and
the fuck?
medicine, honor all Canadians through their
The government's
commitment,
buying every
dedication,
kid
and
an
professionalism.
iPad.
A reminder from York Catholic teachers: be safe, be smart, be kind.
The Big Story. I'm your host, Jordan Heath Rawlings. We'll take you through this crisis one day and one story at a time. Listen at thebigstorypodcast.ca or wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning. Canadian grocers are expected to be in the spotlight today as Stats Canada releases its report on grocery sales up to April 11th. And analysts are curious to see the data as the coronavirus pandemic has led to unique spending habits as Canadians remain at home. On base, shares of Loblaw rose by 2.7% in Friday trading, while Metro lost 0.2%. And U.S. stock futures did move lower at the open of trade on Sunday. Dow futures fell by 0.3%, that's more than 40 points, while the S&P and NASDAQ futures also dropped by at least 0.3%. However, it was not long before futures changed direction and rose by at least 0.3%. It comes as Wall Street logged its first weekly gain in 3, higher by at least 2.5% for the week. As for the TSX, it's coming off a weekly gain of more than 2.3%. On Friday, it locked in a 5-day rally up by 132 points to 14,966. In electronic trade, we saw gold drop more than 0.3%, while oil in electronic trade fell more than 2% as it comes off a weekly gain of more than 25%. On Friday, the Canadian dollar was higher by 23/100 cent, closing at 71.80 cents U.S. Today, earnings are expected from Under Armour, Premium Brands Holdings, and Tilray. And with more on what we're watching, here's Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini.
And just as
H1N1 makes you think you're going to die.
In March, it won't be
This
long
COVID
before the
thing
job
makes you think you're going to be sick
as well,
forever.
according to some, including
Makes you think you're going to die. It just makes you think
over
you're going to be sick
Renaissance
forever.
Macro Research.
I'm confident
Virus
that in the
is
next
fucking
12
with
to
your head
18
when you
months,
get
we have seen the worst jobs report of our lifetime in terms of the establishment month-over-month number, but we'll also see the best.
More earnings from the battered travel and entertainment industry are due today as Marriott reports first quarter results. We'll also hear from Park Hotels and Resorts and casino operator Caesars Entertainment. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
At the Business Center, I'm Carl
The
Garnett.
casinos should be responsible for washing money.
Just by doing something you're already doing. 15 or 25%.
You're not going to make the retail banks do it. You should make the fucking casinos do it. Who else is handling
Doing
it?
something they're already doing. Driving safe. That's right, 30% just by driving safe. Visit allstate.ca or call a local agent for a quote today and see just how much you can save when you drive safe with Allstate.
Search Save 30% with Allstate for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
Cancer connects us all. We all have a
Oh,
story.
don't fucking
I
tell
was
me
13
this
years
shit,
old
dog.
when I first heard the word cancer.
Being diagnosed with colon cancer was an overwhelming
Yeah, there's something else.
I'm Eric McCormack. Research,
Once
including
you diabetes,
clinical trials,
obviously,
helps to
so
change the story for cancer patients across Canada.
I am now 9 years cancer-free.
Join Stand Up to Cancer Canada and the Canadian Cancer
Don't
Society
have
to learn
an
more
ass.
about the groundbreaking research that translates into life-saving treatments. Visit standuptocancer.ca/CCS to learn more.
This is 680 News.
Toronto.
Now taking a look at the national forecast for today. In Calgary, mainly cloudy, a high of 9 degrees. In Edmonton, a mix of sun and cloud and 11. On the west coast, Vancouver, mainly cloudy and 24. As we head east in Toronto, periods of snow mixed with some rain and 7. In Ottawa, a chance of flurries and 9. And in the Maritimes, Halifax, mainly sunny, a high of 15. And in St. John's, a mix of sun and cloud, and a high of 9.
Oh.
This is All News Radio.
It's Monday, May 11th. Good morning. I'm Jasper and Cooner.
And I'm Josh Ritchie. Here's what's making news right now.
You got to show that good morning.
Another Cargill meat processing plant has been plagued by COVID-19, with over 60 employees testing positive in Montreal.
Ontario's economic engine is sputtering back to life. We spoke to a local employment lawyer about the rights of employees and employers as they return back to work during a pandemic.
Those living in Vancouver will soon be able to hit the golf course again, but the industry is taking a major hit with banquets and corporate events being off the table.
If you happen to be on social media over the weekend, you may have seen beaches in Vancouver already overcrowded. We're talking with the park board, who says they aren't concerned.
In sports, the NHL struggles to return from the COVID-19 suspension back in March. More at 45.
Attention turns to Canadian grocers today as StatsCan releases its latest report on grocery sales during the coronavirus pandemic. Well, U.S. stock futures moved in both directions.
It does mean exactly the same. Everybody panicked, purchased, and then they were trying to return toilet paper. They bought too much shit. Why would you try to return toilet paper?
Access the North 400 using the East 401
Where did you steal that toilet paper?
East of the 412 on the eastbound 401, right lane gone for road work. Other side of the highway, westbound 401 at Brock Street. Crews there are working in the 2 left lanes. On City Street, St. Dennis Drive.
I bet nobody ever thought they would have to make that rule.
Collision investigation.
Do not accept returns of toilet paper.
680 News is working to get you the answers.
Oh, I didn't know that. I would have bought that.
416-872-6800, and we'll work to get you the answer. Next report at 3:41. Now let's check your forecast.
A daytime high of 8 degrees on your Monday. Our seasonal average high is closer to 17 degrees, so much cooler than that. We're also expecting some snow to wrap up by about 8 a.m. or so, and then overcast conditions for much of the day, the sun poking through in the late afternoon. A low of -2. Your high for today, 8 degrees.
We begin in Montreal, where at least 64 workers at a Cargill meat processing plant have tested positive for COVID-19.
It's the second time the company has experienced an outbreak at one of its Canadian facilities, having just reopened the beef packing plants in Alberta following a 2-week shutdown. A union spokesperson says the plant in Chambly, Quebec will temporarily close as of Wednesday to allow workers to be tested. The union says Cargill had implemented safety measures for employees, including installing plexiglass between workers where possible, staggering arrival and departure times, and providing masks, visors, and safety glasses.
That's Lori Paris reporting the Cargill plant in
You guys working in meat plants don't have like visors
Prior
or
to
something
restarting
seriously?
business at the plant, there have been 2 deaths and over 1,500 infections connected to the facility. Despite facing heavy backlash, the company went ahead with reopening its doors last Monday.
Some of those electric chainsaws
As
before.
Ontario's economy begins to crawl back to normal, many are wondering if it's safe to return to work. Ben Chapman
It's
spoke
never
with
going
an
to be
employment lawyer
safe
in Toronto
again for
about the rights
anything
of employees and
ever.
employers.
It was never
If your
safe to go
employer
to work.
orders you back to work, Adam Savalio says
Look at all the
there's no
people that die
real
at work.
reference for right and wrong.
In an unprecedented time, this is a crisis. There's no guidebook, there's no manual book to go by except what's the existing law, what's the existing legislature, and we're trying to cram all these rules and conduct in there.
Savalio says there has to be an appreciation for employers trying to restart their workplaces, but we can't do so at the risk of employee safety.
Really, what we're looking at is something that's not really been seen before in Ontario law, that we can gauge and say, okay, that's where we fit, and here's the proper protocols. It's going to be a guessing game for a little while.
Savalio says we shouldn't be looking at employees and employers working against each other. We should be working together in what is an unprecedented time. I'm Tim Chapman.
It's been no secret that COVID-19 has had a devastating effect on Canada's seniors, particularly those in long-term care homes. Experts say this could have been avoided if these homes were kept up to date. In Ontario, there are reasons for optimism, with more people being tested, the number of daily cases down, and more businesses slated to open on Monday. Stuart McGinn joins us with more.
In Ontario tomorrow, any retail business with a street entrance can open and offer curbside pickup to customers, while Ontario's provincial parks will also open for daytime hours, but Park Patrol will be there, ensuring people maintain physical distancing. The slow measures to reopen continue as experts hone in on those hit hardest by COVID-19, Canada's long-term care homes. Some telling the CBC crowded shared rooms and outdated facilities have only made the virus worse to those who know are most vulnerable to it. And Dr. Theresa Tam agrees more needs to be done to protect them.
If we are willing to give what it takes to address these weaknesses and to provide better support to poorly compensated workers, we stand a better chance of maintaining control of the virus.
Chief Public Health Officer calls the situation in our country's long-term care homes a national crisis, with residents accounting for more than 80% of Canada's COVID-19 related fatalities. I'm Stuart McGinn.
Now in BC, Medical Health Officer for Vancouver Coastal Health, Dr. Michael Schwandt, says they learned from the experiences of Quebec and Ontario and what they were seeing in outbreaks internationally. He says staff started extensive use of personal protective equipment. Visits were cut off and those diagnosed were isolated. They also tested for the virus around the facilities.
Staff have gone and taken swabs from key areas within the facilities, and in some cases they've found COVID-19, the virus causing COVID-19, to contaminate
exactly how you're supposed to say it.
Parts of the facility. So, for example,
SARS-2 causes COVID-19.
In a few cases actually been contaminated with COVID-19.
Over 400 residents and staff at BC care homes have tested positive for the virus.
The last of Vancouver's public golf courses is set to reopen this week. The broader future for the golf industry remains in question due to the pandemic shutdowns. As Toby Kerr tells us, this doesn't have anything to do with
the lightning strike thing tell you shouldn't be playing that
Unlike
game.
other provinces, such as next door in Alberta, golf courses here in BC have mostly remained open during the pandemic shutdown. However, this doesn't mean they're not struggling. Erica Beck, BC Regional Director of the National Golf Course Owners Association, says key revenue sources have dried up during this shutdown.
Golf courses definitely have and host a lot of weddings and birthday parties, anniversary celebrations, graduations, corporate events.
Saying she's not sure what the broader impact on the industry will be, Beck notes that most golf courses are currently only running at a half to a third of their normal staffing levels. BC's golf sector employs about 44,000 people annually. I'm Toby Kerr.
Annually, 44,000.
Vancouver's beaches were busy this weekend, and a police officer is among those expressing concern online. But as Tim James reports, the park board isn't as worried about a lack of physical distancing.
You know, with the photos you see online of kind of a lot of that sort of Twitter changing kind of photography.
Camille Dumont, the chair of the Vancouver Park Board, says if you're looking at a photo, it's tough to prove groups aren't 2 meters apart.
Sometimes it looks really shocking, and sometimes it is, and other times it's kind of a perspective.
He adds park rangers are also out there educating people. Meantime, Shauna Wilton, the deputy general manager of the Park Board, says photos don't explain who lives together.
Have to continue to trust that the people have had 2 months of physical distancing practice, and they are still keeping an eye on that.
Constable Lee Martin with the VPD has posted photos of English Bay with the caption, "You wouldn't know we're in the midst of pandemic by looking at the crowded Vancouver beaches today." I'm Tim James.
Many First Nations leaders across the country have called on community members to return to the land to hunt and gather medicine to help battle COVID-19. Dean National Chief Norman Yakalaya says people in the Northwest Territories are hunting and fishing and sharing the bounty with the community. But he says it's also reconnecting people with tradition.
When you're doing what they were already doing is going back to
live together, survive together, work together. You get your chance to work with your children.
He says a lot of people in the area know stories about how the 1928 flu epidemic decimated the region, so they are taking precautions.
We continue to work towards flattening our curve here in Canada, but elsewhere around the world, countries are fighting their battles with the virus. Joey Keeney has details from around the globe.
Australia's Health Minister Greg Hunt says his government supports a European Union motion for an independent investigation into the origins of COVID-19 in China. Australia has been calling for such an inquiry for some weeks to better understand how the coronavirus started in Wuhan and to be able to counter such pandemics in the future. The move has drawn a sharp response from China, which is Australia's #1 trading partner. In Spain, certain regions can scale back lockdown measures starting Monday with limited seating at bars, restaurants, and other public places. But Madrid and Barcelona, the country's largest cities, will remain shut down. An Indian Navy warship carrying 698 of its citizens stranded in the Maldives because of the coronavirus lockdown has docked at a port in the country. This is the first vessel to arrive as a part of India's massive repatriation mission. India is also using its national air carrier Air India to bring back thousands of stranded citizens from the Persian Gulf, the UK, and elsewhere in Asia. Worldwide, over 4 million people have been confirmed infected by the coronavirus, and more than 1.4 million people have recovered. I'm Joey Keeney.
It's 39 minutes past the hour. You're listening to All News Radio.
I was made president just before COVID-19 lockdown began.
Nelson Fresco, President, Mila Canada.
We pivoted by compressing our 5-year online strategy into the last 5 weeks.
Surprised? Don't be. Nelson is a member of PEO Leadership, Canada's premier peer-to-peer advisory firm.
PEO Leadership helped me